Senator from Texas.
Mr. President, yesterday I highlighted some of of President Biden's final actions as he leaves office, parting gifts, if you will. Well, today I'd like to highlight another of his parting gifts, and I use that in parentheses or with quotations because they're really a slap in the face for the American people and American taxpayers. This past Monday, the Department of Education canceled student loans for 150,000 borrowers. Now, this is not really a cancellation of those loans, it's just a transfer of the responsibility to taxpayers and wiping the slate clean for people who actually agreed to borrow this money so they could attend schools. Then on Wednesday, just 2 days ago, the Biden administration announced an additional cancellation of $4.5 billion for 261,000 borrowers. The president's actions this week and the last week of his presidency brings this total taxpayer bailout to $183.6 billion. Now, remember last June, or June of 2023, the Supreme Court ruled in a 6-3 decision that the Department of Education lacks the authority, the legal authority, to implement these across-the-board student loan cancellations. But the Biden administration, never to be one that actually obeys the law, has continued to ignore the ruling of the Supreme Court, issuing a blank check after blank check to borrowers to let them off the hook from paying bills that they agreed to pay in the first instance. This policy is not just illegal, it's profoundly unfair. It's unfair to the families who have sacrificed and saved to send their own children to college. It's unfair to the students who worked multiple jobs during college to avoid accruing large amounts of debt. And it's unfair to all the graduates who've worked hard and paid off their loans. And finally, Mr. President, it's unfair to Americans who have foregone a college education because they couldn't afford the cost. And now they have to pick up the tab for those for whom President Biden has canceled their debt. Any family with a mortgage, a car payment, or a credit card debt knows there's really no such thing as canceling the debt. Somebody is going to pay. Every dollar that was borrowed will eventually be repaid by somebody. It's just a matter of who that someone is. And in this case, it's the American taxpayer. It's really a slap in the face, a kick in the teeth. You choose your metaphor. But it's no surprise that the American taxpayers have rejected the direction in which President Biden and his administration have taken the country, and they voted for a new direction on November the 5th. But that just makes it even more offensive that a lame duck president would proceed full speed ahead with more student debt cancellation after being told no by the Supreme Court and being told no again by voters on November the 5th. Back in May, along with my colleagues Senator Ernst and Senator Cassidy, I introduced a congressional resolution of disapproval that would have overturned the Biden administration's reckless and unfair student loan socialism. Of course, the Democratic-controlled Senate did not bring that CRA, the Congressional Review Act, up for a vote. But now, with Republicans in the majority, I hope this is something that we can and will address. Student loan socialism would be a great opportunity for the Department of Government Efficiency, headed by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, to take a look at, because there's nothing less efficient and more wasteful and more unfair than taking billions of dollars from taxpayers who didn't go to college to pay for those who did and who agreed to pay the money back but simply now will not have to do so. The vast majority of Americans don't benefit from this student loan socialism. 87% of Americans don't have student debt. So the 13% who do are now foisting that responsibility on the 13% are foisting it on the 87%. If you look at those who do benefit, it becomes even more clear how little sense this makes. Even the Progressive Brookings Institute pointed out that blanket student loan forgiveness benefits those who are better off by income, by education, and by wealth. Unsurprisingly, those with student loans are likely to have higher paying jobs. If we look back at the institutions and not just the individuals that are benefiting from these massive taxpayer subsidies, which is what they are, we'll also find that this is anything but an efficient use of American taxpayer dollars. Over 100 colleges and universities in the United States, including Columbia, Cornell, Yale, and Princeton, are currently under investigation from the Department of Education because of their mishandling of incidents of anti-Semitism on their campuses since October the 7th, 2023. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act prohibits discrimination on the basis of ethnicity for institutions that receive federal funding. And so the complaints of anti-Semitism in the wake of the terrorist attacks on Israel have in some cases amounted to violations of federal law. Many of these colleges and universities are rushing to enter into settlements with the Biden administration before the Trump administration takes office on Monday, which of course is not surprising. President Trump has made clear that the taxpayer support for those universities that fail to end anti-Semitic propaganda that has run rampant over the last 2 years, that taxpayer support will end. Now is not the time to reward these institutions with widespread incentives to continue raising their tuition by canceling student debt. And if we want to address the affordability of college, an important topic, widespread student loan socialism is not the way to do it. So as I said, for a variety of reasons, this would be a great place for the Department of Government Efficiency to shine the light on and for us to do something about in the coming days. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget pointed out that we could save the taxpayers as much as $550 billion by reversing all of President Biden's actions on student loan cancellation. $550 billion. So we have our work cut out for us. But one great place to start would be to end the Biden administration's reckless student loan socialism. Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I'd note the absence of a quorum.